Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of All-Wheel Drive. And today we are going to drive a car that everybody knows, most love, and that has also had significant improvements over the last decade. This car has come a long way from its original introduction and has sustained its competitive edge and place in automotive history and for sports enthusiasm and muscle car. So we're talking today about an American car. We're talking about the Mustang GT. We're in a 2017 model car, and my friend Devin has been gracious enough to lend it to us for the day to just have a chance to drive it and give some impressions about it. I grew up loving Mustangs. I've had several Mustangs in my lifetime, and I haven't been in one in a long time. The last Mustang I had was a 90s model, and that was a great car in the day. And then Mustangs kind of drifted off a little bit in the mid 90s. They weren't the most stylish. Ergonomics were, well, I wouldn't even call what they were ergonomic, but you know, they did have some rough patches. And I think Ford has come back from a very, very low point to create a car that definitely competes in the market beyond just America. This car now is a serious contender to the German automakers, the European and Asian as well. So we got a really, really good mix of things here that make this car serious on the list of considerations if you're looking at a sports performance car. So we're gonna take this car for a ride, put it through its paces a little bit, and just kind of talk about what's great. If there are any things that are not so great, we'll point that out. But from the first impression, just looking at the car, getting in the car, the lines are great. It harkens back to the original, fastbacks of the early 70s. It's just a beautiful car now, and it's got the handling and the power to boot and back up its claim as being a serious competitor in the sports car market. So let's get going and just see how it goes. I'm in an automatic. As most of you know about me, I really, really love manual transmissions. I'm old school, and manuals just make me feel more part of the car, more engaged with the car, and I get a sense of exactly what the car is saying in terms of feedback. But in this day and age, automatics are really sort of changing the face of sports and performance because they're so good and they do so many different things. I mean, your automatic isn't just a, stick and go sort of situation. Now you can actually engage with the transmission and control how the car actually responds. So, this car is actually equipped with a sports setting, and with that comes, you guessed it, paddle shifters. I'm pretty excited about that, because I think if you're going to have a car with a lot of power in an automatic form, paddle shifters are just a given, a rite of passage. Otherwise, you're just going to miss the whole point of the car. So I'm pretty excited about that. Hopefully we'll have a nice free road today. It's pretty cloudy out. I was gonna say foggy. It's that too. It's been misting a lot. We're in June gloom here in California, so the sun, it's unpredictable at best. I mean, it might come out, may not, could be late, could be early, who knows. But the temperature's good. It's really ideal for driving a performance car because it's not too hot, and the air is kind of dense and cool. So that's really good for the intake and generating the optimal power solutions out of the car. I really like this car. I mean, the way it feels when you sit in it, you're really enveloped by the seats and the cockpit. I mean, it's built around you. One of the things I remember about my Mustangs from the 90s was you kind of just sat in a seat in the car. It's like it wasn't really built around you as much as you were kind of just fitting yourself into it. And in a performance car, you really want that to be the opposite. You want the car to feel like it's designed around you so you can get the most out of it when you're driving it. You want to feel like everything is where it needs to be to make it convenient, accessible, and controllable, especially in a car with a lot of horsepower or torque. But this car is really well laid out. I mean, everything just wraps around you real nice. Blind spot wise, yeah, it's got some. The car has really tall pillars, so you're basically sitting with your head just over the window base, and everything is at that level for the most part. But you have pretty good view. I mean, I'm 6 foot, and so I can see out pretty well. It's an adjustment because you are kind of in a cavern, sort of. The car has got very small rear windows behind the B pillar, as do most of these cars. Camaro's the same way. So it's an adjustment, but once you sort of get comfortable with where everything is placed, how the mirrors offer you vantage points, you kind of settle in real well. But as I was saying, you know, the fit and finish, the positioning, the ergonomics are really good. I mean, everything is at reach. It is a little long in some areas, like I'm reaching for the dash right now, and I have to actually extend my shoulder to get to the buttons. But that's not a big deal. When you're in a corner, powering through it, coming out hard under acceleration, the last thing you need to be doing is messing with your climbing control. The gear shift is close. This car does have paddle shifters, but it does not have the ability to shift from the stick. So it's pretty much fixed in that sense. It goes into either sport, where you have complete control from a manual standpoint, or it goes in drive, and then you're done. You can also control your gear shifts in regular mode with the paddles. So that's kind of the new thing. I mean, if a car can't do that in this day and age, basically it's a dinosaur. Call it a T-Rex, because it should be able to operate your gear changes from the paddles no matter what mode you're in. The advantage to having it in drive mode is if you are just trying to get a nice acceleration to pass or merge or whatever that might be, you can do that, and then you're back out to your upper gears. But you can do that, and then if you don't do it manually, back up to the next gear, it will go back on its own. So that's a big plus in the new age of automatic manual transmissions. On the freeway, the thing drives really well. It's not as harsh as I remember Mustangs being. Basically, you hit a bump in a Mustang and you had a chiropractor appointment the next week. I mean, I just hit a little dip there and the car just soaked it up. It felt kind of luxury, actually. One thing I will say, though, as I sit in the cockpit here, driver's seat, if you will, it has a very high and long hood. I mean, it is massive. And you can tell that just by looking at the car from outside. It is a very long nose. That's definitely obvious as one of the first things you notice about this car. And when you're sitting in it, it becomes even more apparent, because I'm looking at the hood and all I can see is the very top of it. I don't expect to see the headlights, of course, but I'm looking at the back top of it. So if it were a hill, I'm on the back side of the hill looking as it goes up. So you don't see much of the front of the car. You're not really sure about how far that hang is. So if you're turning into a parking space, you got to really sort of know this car and tread cautiously, because you know you could probably take out a few panels on someone's car and really mess up the front of this one. So that's definitely something to consider. Looking out of the back, though, the deck lid is very low. That's one of the other things you'll notice. Without a spoiler, it kind of tapers downward with a little lip at the back. But that slope allows for clear view out of the rear window. I mean, I don't see any part of the deck lid out of this window, and I'm looking at a real clear and open view. Nice big wide window. The pillars are positioned so they don't obstruct where you're looking. I can see pretty much everything. It's really well done. And that's important in a car that you're going to be going fast in, because if you don't know what the hell's going on around you, it's just a recipe for destruction. Chaos, disorder, you know the drill. But it feels really good on the road. It's definitely a car you can go on long trips in and be real comfortable. I mean, one of the things I always notice with sports cars is in the seating position, I tend to have to adjust them a lot to get to a specific position for me because I have long legs, and if the seat is not positioned just right relative to the floor and the way that you're using the pedals, the tendons in the back of my leg behind my knee will get sore. That happens in a lot of manual cars that I drive, particularly MX-5. That car always causes me to have, you know, tenderness, soreness in that area because of the way that the seat is positioned and how low it is on the floor. So in other cars you can also experience that, and in this car I don't get the sense that that's going to be a problem because you've got pretty good range of adjustment for how your seat sits off the floor and how far forward you sit, and then with the bolstering and all those things, it really aids in your position. So you can actually sit in this car for a long time and not feel fatigued and like you need to get out and stretch your legs. Eventually you will if you're, say, going to drive to Vegas. You definitely will on a 4-hour trip, but for the most part, it's pretty comfortable. I think you could tough it out if you had to without stopping on a long journey, but it's comforting to know that it is set up so that you can drive this car for long periods and you're comfortable in it. It's really quiet though. Until you get on it, you don't really hear that V8. This is the 5-liter V8 Ford reintroduced years ago, which was the best move they could have made because the 4.6-liter engine, honestly, unless they were doing a lot of tweaking to that engine, was kind of lame for the GT. The 5.0 is where it's at. That's basically sort of a must-have in a Mustang. It just kind of goes with the territory. It's like tea and crumpets. Nice seats. I feel pretty comfortable in them. I mean, going from a lot of the really performance-focused seats from the likes of Porsche and BMW, this is a real good job by Ford. Because as I mentioned in the previous model cars that I had growing up, they weren't built around you. They were built for you to get in and adjust to what's going on around you. These cars are now set up to where you are the most important thing in this interior. You are what the interior is made to accommodate. So these seats are real comfortable. They've got good support in the lumbar area. You sit nicely into the pad so that the bolster kind of surrounds you. I haven't made any adjustments to it. They're not too high. They could be a little wider and probably come up a little bit more, but these are not Recaros. These are just, like I said, this is the base model, so these are the seats that come with it. But it's not a bad offering. I mean, I've seen worse, I've seen better, and these are perfect. Transmission is really smooth. It's a 6-speed. It goes through the gears really nicely, and one of the things I've mentioned in other videos about the automatic transmissions today, they don't intrude on your driving, so you don't really feel what they're doing unless you're summoning up a lot of torque and power out of the need of acceleration. And most of that is just the force of it, because they're so smooth. The gear transitions are silky smooth and clear and crisp, to where you don't really get a lot of the feedback from the mechanical side of it changing gears. And with this car, that's definitely nice to see, because the American cars tended to take a little longer to evolve in those areas. Let's change it up. Gonna go to sport. Quick shifts. And it holds that RPM much better. And again, doesn't become obtrusive. It's still smooth. What's cool about it in sport mode though is as you decelerate and you come off the gas, you get the sensation that you're in a manual, because it's kicking the revs back up as you downshift, and you can hear the engine sort of turn it up as you downshift. It's kind of exciting. It ain't kind of exciting, it's really exciting. I can't wait to get this thing in the twisties up here. It's gonna be fun. Oh, and it holds the gear really nicely. at that. I'm still in the gear. It's holding the gear for me. Man, it just pours it on. It's very steady in the acceleration and holding the gears. It just pours it on. And you can feel it. Now that's what I was talking about before, where the transmissions are so smooth that you don't really feel the changes of the gears. Well, in that situation, I could actually feel the downshift a little bit because it was intended to let me feel it. So as I was slowing down, I could feel the car jolt a little bit as it kicked down in gear. Basically, you've got that blipping that takes place to keep you in the rev range that you want to be in. So if you're downshifting because you're going through a corner, you want it to blip, go into the next gear, and hold that RPM. So when you come out of that corner, you've got maximum torque, maximum horsepower coming out because you're in the rev range that will give you that. So that's really neat. So far, I'm really impressed. I mean, because most of these cars, they're meant to be everyday cars. If you think about the Porsche 911, one of the main taglines for that is that, you know, you can drive this car to work and then to the track and then back home. Oh, that sounds sweet. Kind of going very cautiously, just because I don't know the car's limits yet, and this road doesn't have a lot of forgiveness. If you go off, you're gonna have an accident because there's gravel on each side. You don't have the drop off like you do on some of the other roads over here, but it's not gonna really give you much room for forgiveness. And like I said, the car is heavy. It does bounce a little, so I just want to kind of feel it out, see what it does in moderate aggression. It's pretty smooth, boy, this thing. Yeah, there it is. There's that roll I was talking about. Basically just bounced over that section pretty heavy. So you're not going to go into the aggressive driving with this car like you will with, say, I don't know, the GT350R or the GT350. It's not quite set up that way, and I'm certain that you can get a handling package on the car that, you know, they've got Roush that they can do with your cars from Ford. So there's handling packages you can get that will help that, but as I said, you can't have both worlds on the comfort and handling front, so you're going to end up with one or the other in most situations. So, there's my traction control. There it is. Sounds good. The majority of American cars, as I remember them, were just torque monsters. So from the point of takeoff to probably the midpoint of your rev range, it was just throwing you as hard as it could into your seat. This car does throw you, but it's a very subtle sort of experience. It's not intimidating, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, it's kind of one of those things if you're accustomed to, you know, old school muscle car power and the way it delivers it, you kind of think about it when you get in a car like this. You kind of expect it, and it doesn't really blow you away that way. So let's get another launch going. There's not a lot out here. quick if you don't know what you're doing in it. I don't know if I'm doing with the windshield wipers. This car is fast, and I think the sensation of fast has become somewhat diluted to us because so many cars are fast now, right? Everything has an element of performance to it. I mean, a 325 or 328 BMW i is probably quicker from 0 to 60 than most sports cars from 2000 and older. I mean, I could probably pull up next to a 1998 Corvette base and a BMW 328i and take him from 0 to 60. So the sensation of power and speed is not quite as visceral as it used to be. It doesn't shock you. Now with this car, the torque is heavy. As you saw back then, it just kind of shook its rear end real easily. So it will do that. But one of the things I do notice is that from takeoff, acceleration is kind of muted. It just doesn't feel like a big throaty, roary V8. It just feels like a performance car accelerating. That's not a knock. It just means that the car is a lot more pedestrian these days than it used to be. Back in the day, the car was just, it would just beat you up. This car won't beat you up. And that's probably a good thing. Because if you're gonna have this car for an everyday means of transportation, you want to be comfortable in it. You want to feel like you've been in a torture device. I think overall, from the perspective of, is the Mustang a great car? Is it worthy of considering if you want a performance car, no matter what your budget is? Is it legit? And the answer to all those is yes, yes, yes. If you want a certain kind of experience with this Mustang brand, then you got to make sure that you buy according to what your focus is. If you want an everyday car that's fun to drive, that's fast, it's beautiful, and it is Mustang, it is what you come to expect from the muscle car, you won't be disappointed with any of them, I'll say. But if you want a car that you can say, this is hardcore, you got to step up. You got to buy the car that's made for that, because every Mustang is not equal. There's a 4-cylinder turbo version, puts out about 320 horsepower or 310 horsepower, and about 320 pound-feet of torque. Really good car, really capable. But as I mentioned though, this car is heavy. Even for this V8, it's heavy. So it'll still be a fun car, but we're a little muted about what performance is anymore, because everything performs. So you won't get what you think you're going to get based on those specs. It is a fun car. It is capable. I've driven one. I liked it. I could totally drive that car every day. But like I said, if you want a hardcore experience with a Mustang, you've got to get the hardcore offering from the Mustang. And that's going to basically relegate you to select the 350, GT, or GTR. Because those cars are as good as you're going to get if you want all the power, all the handling. but you're gonna commute in that car to LA every day. You're not gonna want to, at least. This car, the 4-cylinder, you could totally do that with. The 6-cylinder I have not driven, and I kind of wonder what the purpose of that car is. I'll definitely do a little seat time in it just to sort of give a perspective of how it fits in, you know, in the model lineup. Because with a 300 and some changed horsepower 4-cylinder engine that has a turbo, and then you've got the V6, which is going to be in the 350, I think 350 horse range, 330 to 350. I mean, how much more is it really going to give you? It almost makes the argument for a 6-cylinder insignificant when you go from that 4-cylinder with what it puts out to a V8. Especially the way this V8 performs. It does have a nice sound, though. If I were to compare this to the other cars I've reviewed, particularly my own, pretty much all of them will eat its lunch on a road like this. Because this road is for handling. And this car, with the way that it wallows and bounces, due to the way it's set up, because it's an everyday car that weighs a lot of, you know, a lot of pounds, it's a little inhibited. And you should be too. You don't want to push this car on anything other than a track where you've got runoff in the event that you mess up. Because it is not in any way, in my opinion, forgiving. Would I own one? Yeah. Would I own this one? For the way that I would drive with it, what I wanted for? No. The GT350 would be the way for me. Even though I could do the necessary adjustments for the handling I'm looking for, I don't think that the power delivery, I've not driven the manual to say whether or not that's going to give me what I want either, but from this engine's setup, I don't think it would be what I want. I want the hardcore car. I grew up with the hardcore car. Is this a great car to have if you just want what I listed? The looks, the heritage, the familiarity, the quality. I mean, it's great quality. I think all the pieces look good. Fake carbon fiber, that looks good. Or brushed metal. The materials feel solid. It's not that old, cracky, brittle plastic that you used to get in American cars. It feels like a solid car. It feels like a well-built car. Yes, definitely a good car if you want those things. And a little bit of muscle. It will go. Got a V8, baby. And it lets you know it. But you have to be mindful of the fact that it is not designed to go hard on anything but a straight line. And if you push it, you'll pay. But you can still have a lot of fun with this car. I just, as the kind of driver that I am, know that I would want the hardcore model. Because that's just the driver that I am. But I do like it a lot. I'm glad I had a chance to drive it. I hope you guys have had a fun experience kind of riding along with me. This wasn't the most riveting ride, I know, because like I said, I kind of treaded cautiously and went very, very slow, if you will. I mean, for lack of a better word. with the car. One, because this is Devin's baby. Two, it's just not confidence inspiring in terms of taking it through corners and canyons and being on the power, because it will slip the rear end loose under acceleration. It's got power, don't get me wrong. It's got a solid and capable V8, and it will push this thing really well and really fast. The flip side of that is that it is heavy, and the suspension is not it's not accommodating enough to supplement this power delivery. So going into a corner under hard braking with a car that bounces and moves a lot, it's a recipe for disaster. Driving it and having a great old time, being aware, being smart, being responsible and accountable based on what you know the limitations are, I think you'll have a great time. The fit and finish, like I said, is fantastic. The interior looks great. The car looks amazing. I love it. I do. Like I said, though, I'm probably the GT350 or GT350R consumer, and that would be my next move, is to take one of those out, probably on a track, because when you start jumping into the arena of big displacement engines and cars that just go supersonic fast, you really got to get into a place where you can do that in a safe environment and where it's safe for other people. And that's really the only place to do that. So that wraps us up. Thank you guys. Appreciate your support, appreciate your viewership. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't hesitate to tell me you liked it. Comments and feedback are always welcome. And check out the website, allwedrive.com, where we'll have content, whether you're buying or selling a car, tips for those things, products, and then videos, photos, anything you can imagine. It all can be accessed there. Again, thank you guys. Till the next video. Peace.